now I'd like to call the Brighton Area School Board of Education meeting to order. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Ackerman.
Mr. Birchfield. Dr. Chesney.
Here.
Mr. Stahl.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Mr. Conley.
Here.
Mrs. Reed. Here. Mr. Trombley.
Here. Next item is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So, motion by Trombley, second by Myers. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 6-0-0, one absent. The next item on the agenda is the Shining Star for the always awesome, always incredible Brighton High School marching band. I believe I'm turning it over to you, Mr. Stahl.
Yes, sir. The Brighton High School band students had an amazing trip to Tampa, Florida. We participated in the field show competition and took first place in our division. Then we did line up for the parade in Ybor City, and while waiting for our start, we were stopped by the news anchor man, Babe 9 News, who interviewed Mrs. Hoffman and had the students play Cave 80. And I've seen that on their cable news channel. We'll be getting a DVD from the news channel. At that point, our band was the largest band in the parade and performing Walking on Sunshine. Managed to get the crowd so involved that we took first place for crowd pleasers for the parade. We capped off our performances with a mass band performance during halftime of the Outback Bowl, which was aired on ABC, a small clip, and our parents posted on our Facebook page. That I saw about 150 times. Yes, I'd probably give you Ms. Gabrielle Hoffman, our instrumental director.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl, for nominating our wonderful students. And what we'd like to do now is just have them come up and high-five you all, to do it in a quick manner to get us out of here and get you on business. I would just like to recognize all the students that participated in this trip. This is not in any particular order, it's actually by the bus order because that's what I have. So, here we go. Jessica Eating, Emily Taylor, Angie Delisle, Emily Valancourt, Erin Foley, Angelina Placido, Hannah Palmer, Lene Steinke, Anna Krebs, Taylor Corral, Brenda Harrison, Dawson Lopez, Stephen Baraga, Brendan Akers, Drew Chamberlain, Owen Kay, Jack Simpson, Olivia Dunn, Jessica McIntosh, Lindsay Ellie Dunn, Lindsay Winters, Emily Zimmerman, Sarah Woodley, Spencer Mack, Steve Hoffman, Chris Stroud, Austin Jones, Brandon Chesney, Jennifer Rusi, Andy Walker, Aaron Ravy, Rachel McVay, Paige Osgood, David Hughes, Jim Rose, Mackenzie Hilscher, Joe Oxter, Jenna Ryanowski, Megan Staley, Marina Staley, Joel Staley, Will Lampa, Matt Trish, Todd Sato, Dave Cole, Paul Graham, Nate Williams, Alex Stewart, Cameron Needham, Carly Jones, Beth Lang, Natalie Richardson, Anthony Skiles, Jacqueline Wheeler, Grace Snyder, Andrea Rosenau, Kate Densler, Casey Clark, Eric Simon, Austin Powell, Jake Saxman, Robbie Colder, Celia London, Lauren Archery, Marie Hines, Ashley Howard, Scott Hines, Alexa Lambro, Fred Bailey, Tasha Warren, Dylan Stone, Catherine Young, Brandon Snyder, Haley Hale, Avery Zolkowski, Gabby Rubel, Kendall Phelps, Erica Schultz, Emily Mathis, Madison Muscoviak, Lauren Riga, Jocelyn White, Peter Price, Gavin Lamero, Brad Cannon, Carson Archery, Isabella Silver, Ben Raving, Lindsay Merrill, Greg Sapchinsky, Alexa St. Germain, Casey Martindale, Abby Ray Langell, Kaya Johnson, Brendan Niddle, Kyle Burnham, Brian Ritchie, Jack Newcomb, Xavier Lay, Alex Hogue, Haley Klassen, Eli Partington, Tyler Kluger, Rachel Audie, Jason Graham, Jack Spamer, Hunter Holmes, Maverick Sinzik, Connor Young, Aaron Lee, Charlie Ryan, Sean Smith, David Hines, Zach Duggins, Sophie Wisniewski, Hannah Bedner, Grace Carney, Rachel Zimmerman, Holly Wickman, Caitlin Walker, John Kaylee, Raymond York, Christian Koss, Leah Schofer, Reagan Abramson, Amanda Whitley, Brianna Larson, Will Ragnone, Colin Faith, Alex Eddy, Nicole Cook, Mary Quaglito, Audrey Beaton, Emma Tuzian, Caitlin Warner, Jackie Schulte, Allie Harris, Adriana Totaro, Mackenzie Chapman, Alex Day, Eric Taylor, Andrew Coster, Jack Baldridge, Jackson Curry, Teddy Draven, John Harrington, Mitchell Moran, Ryan Newcomb, Jarrett Mulligan, Jacob Arbor, Nathan Alger, Bryce Kozer, Matt Knopp, Kevin Carmichael, Evan Flannelly, Evelyn Flannery, David Delisle, David Riga, Joseph Zawisa, Curtis Cayley, Cece Mykick, Jacob Greca, Nicholas Curry, Chelsea McDaniel, Danielle McDaniel, Tori McMullen, Jesse Arbor, Ellie Legal, Robbie Powers, Christian Floyd, Lindsay Sankey, Lily McKee, Jenny Oxter, William Wright, Brianna Ziegler, Carolyn Ingram, Andrew Hanna, and we couldn't have done it without the following parents: Teresa Langell, Tracy Pearsall, Mrs. Kobler, Deanna Lamoureux, Bill Lamoureux, Tracy Zeider, Rita Stone, wow, my eyes are failing, Rebecca McVeigh, Erica Warner, Kurt Droz, Rob Merle, Melanie Merle, Laura Ziska Rice, Lisa Winberg, Mike Arson, John Jones, Stacy Jones, Diane Oxter, Mark Oxter, Donna Taylor, Cindy Ravy, Sandy Hines, and of course a special thank you to my staff, Michael Osborne, Jennifer Evans, Liz Williamson, Stephen Sharp, Frank Smith, and Deanne Riga. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everybody for representing Brighton area schools so well at the Outback Bowl. For any parents who are here, and we're here just for the Shining Star, just so you know, we're going to get into policy related to laptops and cell phones. So this is your opportunity to escape, if you so choose. The next item on the agenda is call to the public. And we ask that if you do come up to call to the public, you state your name and your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to present. And at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Mr. Stahl will hold up a flag of some sort, indicating that you have 30 seconds to go. And then when 3 minutes are up, we'll hold up the red flag, letting you know that your time's up. So is there anyone who'd like to come up for call to the public?
Tim Rinks, 6323 Ocala in Green Oak Township. Visiting the LESA website recently and looking at the Parent Advisory Committee bylaws, I note that the PAC members from the different school districts are encouraged to attend school board meetings at least twice per year and to present at those meetings information as to activities and progress on initiatives within the PAC. At the March meeting, they set their agenda for the following year. I would encourage the board to invite your Brighton LSA PAC representatives to an upcoming board meeting. We do have some new board members that may not be familiar with the LASA or with the PAC, and that they can report out on the 2016 activities. I had requested this information on the specific agenda for the PAC, as well as projects and efforts with which the PAC is currently engaged on October 13th last fall. On November 10th, Ms. Jamie Buckley, chair of the LASA PAC and a Brighton representative, responded saying, "We don't have any specific projects we're currently working on, but do as things arise within our local districts," quote unquote. So there is an opportunity for the board to hear from the PAC and to also perhaps provide some input to the agenda for the March meeting, hopefully of which would be the abolition of the coping boxes that I had requested being removed from the Brighton School District, and hopefully support of that throughout the LESA represented districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ranks. Is there anyone else for a call to the public? Okay, call to the public is closed. We move on to the superintendent. Dr. Gray.
We'll start tonight with school board recognition, and while I've already sent you notes on how much we appreciate you as a district and as a district administration, we do have a special guest with us tonight, State Representative Lana Tice. She wanted to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about your roles and responsibilities and appreciation to the state level.
Thank you very much. Having served in local government, I understand what is involved in the commitment that you make every month coming and serving our kids here. And I wanted to make sure that you understand that we at the state understand the efforts that you're making, agree with the priorities that you have. Our children are our future, and we agree with that. And we want you to understand that we recognize and very much appreciate your efforts. This says, let it be known that it's with great pleasure that we commend the Board of Trustees of Brighton School District in honor of School Board Recognition Month for their service to our students and to our community. This recognition is a well-earned milestone, symbolic of innovation, planning, and the personal commitment of many people who share the belief that education is one of the greatest gifts we can give our children. It goes on, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just please understand that we very much appreciate what you do, and we wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Tice. Our second item tonight, before we get to student representatives, I had a couple of requests last meeting to do a little research, bring back some recommendations. The first one was in relation to our relationship with LESA. I did some research in terms of districts pulling out of particular ISDs. While I couldn't find any that have actually pulled out as a standalone, I did find some that have switched from one ISD to the other. I have calls into those districts to explore that a little further, but at this time I haven't found any that actually have a full pull-out type system with that. So if you have further questions individually, or if you'd like to ask me at the table, I could answer as much as I can. I again couldn't find many that had the one, but there were a couple that have chosen to go with a different ISD. At this time, we probably wouldn't recommend making any kind of exit. We have quite a bit of influence in our particular ISD, but there are some different areas that, and Mr. Trombley was one that brought it up, that he and I are going to talk a little bit about to explore as we move forward. So that was that one. Are there questions in relation to the ISD before I get to the signatories? As far as the signatories, there was a recommendation or a request of 3 signatories. When I explored it in terms of law, it wouldn't really do us a whole lot in terms of having a third one, because we're that person's boss anyway. So what we looked at was part of the issue, and I talked again with Mr. Trombley about this, was signatures and whether they're electronic or they're actually physical. And so one of the things that I talked about that for one individual account that he had some questions in relation to was that there will be an actual hand signature or initial of some sort on that one for any monies going in and out. And I don't know if we talked about it earlier today, but that seemed like a pretty easy recommendation or rectification of some of those questions for that one. So that would be our recommendation for that particular one.
So just to clarify, yours handwritten signature
Correct.
over and above the whole time.
That's correct.
This is on all counts?
This is just that one,
Which one is it?
the trust and agency. I don't know the number, but we know.
The one thing that we can change on that is just,
I'll initial or okay, tonight, Tommy Hill's last night. We'll have to get somebody to replace him, not that that's possible, but it's been a pleasure, Tommy, having you for the first semester, and even though you told me some weird chicken stories today, it's still, still all good. And it's Tommy's last night?
Try not to cry. At the high school, first, our National Honor Society was awarded $5,000 for donating the most cans to the Mountain of Food Can Drive. And this is the second year in a row that they've been awarded that prize, so that was great. Coming up soon, Friday, is the last day of this semester. And we're going to have second quarter exams on this Thursday and Friday. And into February, we have Winterfest Spirit Week, which begins February 6th. And that ends with the assembly, the game, and the dance on Friday the 10th. And finally, since this is my last board meeting, I'd just like to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to sit up here and to represent Brighton High School. I've learned a lot about how the district works, and I gained a lot of insight on how important this board is to the integrity of the district. Next semester, Katie Bishop will be taking over for me, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tommy. Yep, Marcus.
Hello, my name is Marcus Schmeiser. I'm a senior at the Bridge. The Bridge is excited to start our early college program in the fall, as well as the 18-credit program for 5th and 6th year seniors. The Bridge student leadership team, Male Stars, will be participating in Legislative Day in the Capitol in March. The Bridge is in the hunt for a new guidance counselor. Ms. Deven, Ms. Kilpatrick, and Ms. Devlin will be interviewing candidates this week. Our winter trimester parent-teacher conferences are coming up February 9th. The Bridge staff will be serving dinner for students and their families. Feel free to come to the conferences and meet the staff from 5:30 to 7:30. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Marcus. And finally, our science update under superintendent report from Dr. Street.
While Wendy's getting set up, let me just explain what we're doing. We're going to be having some program updates for the board as we move forward. As I mentioned at the last board meeting with new board members, I just feel like trying to help everyone get sort of up to speed with the programs and the systems we have in place. So we thought we'd start with science. Science is a huge, we're right in the middle of our science curriculum review and soon to be purchased perhaps down the road, not too far future. And so I asked Wendy, who's our science instructional coach for the district, to just provide us a brief update of the work that's been happening this year, a little bit of where we began last year and where we're going for next year. Anybody stall on that?
Yeah, we have a little issue with the computer freeze here.
Media specialists in the room by any chance?
We can go there we go. Okay. I'll keep clicking, right? Someone's gonna get us something. Oh, look, Margaret's here. Okay, that's fine. The issue is fine. Yeah. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come and provide some science updates. I'm Wendy O'Keefe. I'm the instructional coach supporting Science K-12 in the district, and it's a great honor to do this work and a privilege. So, in November of 2015, as you know, our state adopted the Michigan Science Standards. So with that brings about some transition, not only for the state, but for us here as a district for Brighton area schools. So Dr. Suri and I, with the assistance of a science study group, have spent some time working toward developing an implementation plan for the district. Our first revision of this implementation timeline was January 2016, and our second was in August of this past year, 2016.
So last school year, the 2015-16 school year, we formed a Brighton Area School Science Study Group, and that's composed of a variety of stakeholders, from administrators, teachers, special education teachers, media specialists, and such, all the way down to the idea of creating a cohesive group with which we can steer the ship as we make important decisions for our district with regard to science education over the next several years. So the Science Study Group started last year in January, and we continued with our launch this past, actually about 3 weeks ago, right after we returned from the break. During last year, we defined the why behind our work. We also really focused a lot on the idea of what does a scientifically literate Brighton grad look like, and we worked hard to define that so we could move forward with that vision for this year. Last year, we also conducted a data analysis and needs assessment, and we also brought up the idea of piloting. What materials are out there that really align to the new standards, and then what would the pilot system look like for us as a district? So we had a vendor day in May of last year to kind of round out the spring of the school year, which brought about for this school year, 2016-17, many pilots in the district, which I'll share with you in just a moment. So this year we are continuing science study group. We are implementing several pilots in the district, K-12. We're working hard as a district to support the science and engineering practices, one of the dimensions of our new science standards. So we're really working with teachers to get in touch with what they are, the science and engineering practices, and what they look like in real time with students in the classroom. We've already begun our professional development series, so we're looking to get all teachers, hopefully this year. It's a lofty goal, but our goal is hopefully by August, before next year begins, next school year that is, begins, to have all teachers of science, K-12, trained in the Michigan Science Foundational Science Skills Training. So that gives basically the foundations of our new science standards and a platform for all to work off of as we work toward this transition. And then this year we've also begun working with course mapping at the middle school and the high school level. So what will our transition look like as we look to align to the new science standards? Next school year, so 17-18, we'll definitely be continuing our science study group. We're going to continue our work with curriculum alignment, hopefully purchase, but that's a serious decision to make. Talking with Dr. Surrey and then the support of the science study group, we don't want to rush this process. We want to make sure whatever it is, whatever the material sets might be for all of our grade bands within our new standards, we want to make sure that we've chosen them wisely, that our pilots support that work, and that the equipped rubric supported by NSTA and the NGSS, that everything that we would choose to purchase would definitely check out on those two documents. Moving forward, we hope for implementation of the new standards between next year and possibly the following year if we're not quite ready, and then we'll also be continuing our professional development. Pilots, what are they and where are they located? So we have, again, a vast array of pilots going on in the district as we speak right now. Project Lead the Way is one of our heavy hitters in the elementary setting. We have teachers K4 and K6, along with our media specialists K4 and our enrichment coaches working with Project Lead the Way in the classroom. It's been very well received by students, and it's definitely made some brains hurt on the part of the teachers and of the staff that are trained as lead teachers for our launch work. But it's an awesome program and definitely worth the time and effort put into launch those pilots. A new pilot that we've just come across that we think might be a good one to take a look at is called Phenomenal Science. We've got that one getting ready to launch here in February, March. We are looking at Battle Creek Science. We currently use Battle Creek Science kits in 5th grade, and we're looking to see what they look like with the new alignment in the K-5 grade band. We also have TCI Bring Science Alive in 4th and 5th grade. So we've got that one on at Hawkins and at Mulvey. And we've got McGraw-Hill Science in 7th grade. A couple 8th grade teachers might want to take a look at that soon. It's About Time. We looked at that in 6th grade. And then iQuest, that stands for Investigating and Questioning Our World Through Science and Technology. That's something that I had the opportunity to pilot recently in a 6th grade classroom. And I think that's a really good something to look at. It's definitely on the pro list. And that also is underwritten by National Science Foundation, and then one of our lead science writers in the physical science strand for the Next Generation Science Standards, Joe Krejcia from Michigan State and Create for STEM. We have that one in 6th grade and in 8th grade, so that's happening at Scranton as well. And then at the high school, we've got McGraw-Hill Earth Science, and we've got a couple of teachers looking at the books for biology. And then we also have Hope Mifflin Physics going on in 2 of the physics classrooms over at the high school. And then again, professional development is foundational training for the new science standards. That's something that we'll be continuing at any moment in time. We get a pocket of time with teachers throughout this school year.
So Wendy, could you just address 2 things?
Sure.
Like, first of all, with the pilots, what do you mean by a pilot? And like how long, are these like all year in those buildings? Or the top, are they doing their own units, or are they still following the Michigan standards, the units of study? That's my first question. Second one, could you address the role of parents on the
Sure.
science study group?
Sure.
I don't know if I heard that already, but
Absolutely.
on that.
Yes, thank you. So pilot work, so essentially what we've done through the vendor fair and through just outreach with regard to colleagues and so forth in the community and in different states and social media that we know somebody knows someone that's trying something that we want to give a go if we think it might meet our needs as a district. So we have pilots going on in the grade levels, so we're trying out different sets of materials. The duration of the pilots varies depending on what it is. Project Lead the Way, we have various modules that have been purchased for the grade levels. So at the kindergarten level, the module itself might go for 4 weeks, and as you rise up in the grade levels, they might go for 6, 8, or 10 weeks. So the duration of the pilots for Project Lead the Way varies. When we look at Science Alive, the teachers that are piloting that, one of them is piloting a couple of the units within the book, and then we have 2 other teachers that are piloting the whole book this year in 5th grade. McGraw-Hill, that was a 1-unit look at those materials. It's About Time was a 1-unit. In the middle school level, those 2 I just mentioned, that's approximately a quarter or 9 weeks or so worth of time. iQuest was also a unit. We purchased 1 unit of study to pilot for iQuest in 6th grade and in 8th grade. And then the McGraw-Hill Earth Science, that's more of a semester pilot, and the Hope Mifflin, that's been ongoing since the beginning of the school year in the physical classrooms. And then going back to the composite for the science study group, our composite is made up of parents, administrators, teachers, special educators, media specialists, and I think that
We have
covers.
school board representatives on it too.
Yes, absolutely, that would be good.
Covered everything.
That would be good. I think we had a nameplate for Dr. Chesney kind of up there early on. Yes.
So the parents, it's an unusual group of talent, actually. They're engineers, science education professors.
Yes, we do. Dr. Amelia Doutwell, she's a professor of science education at Michigan State, both on the undergraduate and the graduate level. And she's also heavily involved with the science work that's being done at the state level in terms of the assessment and the accountability piece. And she reached out to Laura last January, so January 2016, and asked if she could lend us a hand. And we're so fortunate to have received her mentorship over the last year with regard to how we're going to move forward with our transitional time frame here with the new science standards for Brighton Area Schools. So she has played a key role as well in that work. We also have 2 engineers, Dan Delisle and Matt Potma from GM, that are present on that committee as well, and Kara Totero from Scranton, she's our rep. So it's been great to work together in that collaborative group. And everybody was happy to be back together in January after not meeting for a few months as we launched into our school year.
It's a huge undertaking, and I know that might sound super busy, and how in the world we come up with a K-8 science program from all of that, but believe me, it will happen, and it will happen relatively quickly, because we'll use the rubrics from the science standards. There's already things that have kind of risen to the top, and others have dropped away, and so we're getting the right feedback so far.
Absolutely. Any other questions or clarifications?
So, yeah, I just, clarification on that, or is that, when we have science standards, and these are dictated by the state,
Yes.
and they come out from the state, and then we look for different tools or initiatives to pilot that allow us, that create the ability to meet those standards,
Right.
right?
Curriculum materials are something we provide. The state provides the standards.
Okay, and then,
We provide the how.
so somewhere in the middle, those two meet, and that's it, and then we assess these different tools and
Right.
pilots to make sure that they are addressed.
Absolutely.
And Project Lead the Way was, I mean, it's on the list as being piloted, but it's not really science curriculum. It's a STEM program. So we committed to that and made a significant purchase of that starting last fall, implemented it a widespread implementation and training for teachers. So that's not something that we're piloting and then questioning, that we've committed to. But again, and the reason why we did that was because it's not curriculum materials, it's supplementary program. All right. Any other questions for Wendy? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I
Mr.
appreciate your
Dickey, coming
time.
up. Anything else in superintendent report, Dr. Ray?
Nope, that's it.
All right, let's move on to 4 action then. First item in 4 action is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion?
Moved by Reed. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Trauma. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. asking out a little brochure. We made an amendment to the minutes last meeting. And it alarms me, something struck me that we weren't supposed to be doing that. And what I wanted to bring to you is, I did call the MASB, Mr. Scott Morrell, he's a consultant, he's also an attorney. And something came to mind, a class I took, and there was major discussion. It's actually something that he would like to bring to one of our retreats as well. And they are doing that right now in Michigan. The issue with that is not whether or not it was said the way it was or not. It has nothing to do with that. The concern is our liability of the school. Minutes, if you look at our bylaws, are supposed to show the action of the school board members. The reason for it is first, STAR is not a licensed court reporter. Court reporters carry heavy liability insurance because they are held liable for what is said and was put down. And they would demand approximately $80,000 a year just to retain these for our meetings. Because of the fact that they have their own insurance and are liable to go to court on behalf of what's recorded. So I'm not asking you to change what's been done in the past or anything like that. What I'm asking you to do is look at what our bylaws say. We need to adhere by these laws for the best interest of our school board. And what the recommendation is, and for example, I'll just give you an example. If I were to make a motion about anything, the size of this class, and it was, and I went into great detail about it. What they recommend be recorded is Mr. Stahl spoke about this class, not the details about it. The action that was taken as a result of that discussion should also be recorded. And it's about liability and looking out for our schools. So I wanted you to have this in your hand. I know we all have a copy of this, but sometimes we don't take a look at it. But that's the key thing. The minutes shall show only action taken. And it's about liability and protection of the school.
So this discussion is kind of about the level, the discrete level of the information that's recorded in this.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If we do it for one, we're going to end up coming to a situation we've got to do it for another, and we may not know exactly what we said. And we've always got people that are recording that we could possibly go back on. But I don't want to put this liability on us or the person that's doing the recording. That's all right. Discussion. Thank you.
And is there any action associated with the specific minutes from January 9th for this? Okay, you just wanted to bring this to our attention.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes from January 9th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 6-0-0, 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is Neola policy from January 9th.
Yes, and we have 5 different Neola policies from 0100, 7540, 7540.01, Volume 1, 7540.01, Volume 2, and 7540.02. All of them are technology related. We have the correct ones in, and it was our fault that we didn't have the selections before, wrong pile. And you can take a look at those. Nothing really earth-shattering. I've been through these with our technology director. He or whomever is in that role is responsible for the majority of these, although when you get to the web content service app particular policy, if there's going to be a web site created, those responsibilities flow from the teacher through the building principal. But I'll entertain any questions.
Is there a motion to approve the policy?
So
Moved by Stahl, is there a second?
Support.
Support by Ms. Reed. Okay, discussion. I have one question. Does anybody else have questions first? So basically this is simplifying or making what used to be the big computer. We used to call it computer policy, and now we're calling it technology.
Correct.
And so now it covers cell phones, it covers tablets, it covers.
It's ever changing because every year there seems to be a new type of communication device. I mean, when I started, this is my 12th year as a superintendent, we didn't have Twitter when I started, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have those things. We didn't have some of the devices that obviously have come about. Policy in general is typically general for a reason, because then a lot of the stuff that we interact with on a daily basis as an administrative team can fall within the policy and we can make a judgment call. But for the technology portion, because we spend a good portion of our day chasing down issues related to technology, that is something that has a little more specificity to it as we select in terms of these particular topics.
Okay. And we have a technology governance committee that oversees the district technology.
That's correct. And that has representatives from the board and parents and administrators and teachers and media specialists and I think a student as well.
Okay. And then I had some questions about details, and if I could just go through these kind of.
Fire away, I'll do the best I can.
All right, on page 18. We have report but not recommend the approval of. Is there, it just, the rationale behind that?
When I talked to the Director of Technology and our policy development team from Neola, they didn't feel like the recommended or the approval of was needed. And so we just had the report.
Okay.
Again, they're trying to keep it as generic and easy to utilize as possible.
Okay. On pages 20 and 21 related to technology. There's 3 options and we didn't choose any of those.
They're all optional.
Okay.
So at this time, it typically happens. So a lot of times when you see a policy, and whether it's a new policy or a revised policy, this one happens to be a revised policy, there are options that come out. The options typically are related to things that have happened in other school districts or our own, and then we pick. Now, for us, when we read through all these different options, Dr. Turner didn't feel like any of these were necessary at the time, felt like the policies we have in place sufficed for what we do presently and gave us the most operating ability within it.
Okay. Page 24. This is related to technology policy. And this is a bigger and bigger concern as we project forward. And the question that I had about technology privacy was kind of device specific versus like BAS email specific.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, and I'll use myself as an example, it's a pretty strong statement about privacy and expectation of privacy. That all district technology resources as defined by the bylaws properly are intended to be used solely for business purposes. The board retains the right to access and review all information resources, including but not limited to electronic and voicemail, computer files, databases, and other electronic transmissions. Okay? I mean, we as a board, and that's a pretty bold statement, that we as a board have access to anything that is on any computer of any employee in the school.
You oversee the district.
Yes.
Okay, you're a policy maker. So this policy gives you the right to explore public documents. Emails that hit our server are public documents. It doesn't mean that individual board members are going to have the ability to come in and run through our system and pick those out. Most of the time, if there's something that we need to look for, it's usually filtered through the superintendent or the director of technology through the superintendent. And then we go from there. If you look at that particular paragraph, most of what you read isn't bold. So that's already existing policy.
Right.
It hasn't changed for probably close to 7 or 8 years now, just based on the fact that it has to be understood that the documents that are housed within a school system are owned by the school system. You oversee in an administrative, not an administrative, but in a board or type setting as a board, the district, and you do it through the superintendent. So that's why it's set up in this particular.
And is it the physical device or the virtual space? I mean, that was my question. Is it?
I would say it's both, depending on who purchases it.
Okay.
So if somebody purchases the piece of equipment, they own the piece of equipment. You could not take that piece of equipment from them and explore it. If somebody sends an email through our system, then it's accessible, as long as it's still in the system. And that's kind of how it's been. Let's see, this is my 17th year, I think, as an administrator. That's how it's been since the very first day. Actually, since I've been teaching 23 years, or in education, and we started using computers, it was well understood that it's public information, so it is what it is.
Okay.
Now, obviously, within that, or within like a FOIA process or something, there are rules to FOIA, and somebody just can't FOIA anything in the school system. There has to be some kind of intent or idea in relation to it, but that's how everybody operates within the school system, and we really don't have any issues.
Let's see. At some point on page 25, it jumps from version 1 to version 2. I'm sorry, on page 28. It jumps to version 2. I just trying to follow what's the difference between version 1 and version 2. You know?
Probably one word in there somewhere. No, I don't.
Okay. Just so
Those were the ones recommended.
Okay. Student photographs in web content. How do we protect our students from various photographs that are posted on our own school website?
So we spend a lot of time with our administration, and every photo that's posted out there or run through our school system runs through STAR in my office. And the principals take a look at it, they call me, they say, hey, we're doing this particular project, we want to put this up on the web, and then I ask them, have you looked through the pictures and made sure, because we have a sign-off process, an opt-out process, that anybody in that particular picture has not opted out of being in that. This was a bigger issue, I would say, 7 or 8 years ago. We didn't have a real good process in place to make sure we identified who it was. Now we run it through our registration process. We're able to collect those documents. Our administrative assistants at the buildings and Star and Shelley do a wonderful job of this. And it's just become a part, since we've done it for almost a decade now, it's become a part of the culture. We know when we're going to push a photo out, probably need to take a look at all the people in the particular photo, make sure there's no opt-outs. We have very, very few opt-outs. We don't have a lot, so it's fairly easy to keep track.
Okay.
And then each individual, if you were asked the building principal, they'd have, either they would have a really good idea, or their secretary would have a really good idea who doesn't want to be posted on those. And there's various reasons for that, and that's really their issue.
So we do have a practice and a process.
Absolutely.
To protect kids
Yeah.
in terms of-
We've really, I'd say, Star, what do you think, over the last 5-6 years, we've really refined it?
Well, we can indicate in our student service system as well, which is very helpful.
So our student data management system flags it.
Okay.
That helps a great deal. Before, we had to keep it by hand. If somebody was out that day, or there were some more issues. Plus, 7 to 10 years ago, this was some new stuff. We didn't have opt-out language. People just posted stuff to post stuff. That's gotten much more restrictive, especially over the last several years.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or discussion? All right, bring it to a vote then. And this is the old policy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 6-0-0 points. All right, amended budget. Dr. Gistinger.
Yes, good evening, Board. You have in your packet the amended budget for 2016-17 for action. I have fielded several very thoughtful questions from several board members throughout the past 2 weeks, and I'm presenting this now for action.
Is there a motion? So moved. Moved by Stahl. Is there a second?
Support.
Support by Reed. Opposed?
Yep.
5-1. Any abstentions? 5-1-0. With 1 absent. All right, moving on, Neola policy, second reading.
We recommend the next set of Neola policy. I would actually direct the questions to Dr. Gistinger. She handles more of the health plans through the business office than I do through my office. So if there are individual questions about privacy protection, self-funded groups, patient protection, or any of those, she would have better answers.
All right, is there a motion to accept the Neola policy?
So moved.
Moved by Trump, is there a second? Second by Stahl. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. On I'm on page 85 on the purchasing cards policy. It mentions that the finance department will conduct independent regular reviews of each card activity. Is that something that's part of our annual audit, or is that separate?
Yes, they do audit our P-card activity.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. What are Neola policies without question? It's like a day without sunshine. So a couple of questions. On page 56, I want to make sure that I can read this number because it didn't come through in the packet.
$3,000.
And it's $3,000 a month.
No, we pay it monthly, but it's a total of $3,000 split over.
Split over 26 pages.
Split over 26 days.
Or
Okay.
21 pages.
Okay. That was a question that I had. I was wondering whether somebody who opted out of insurance then made $3,000 more per month.
No.
Since they did.
It's a monthly distribution, so it's paid monthly, but then the total sum is $3,000. So the compensation is equal to $3,000.
Okay. And just, can we make it clear on page 56 that that's actually a number 3,000? Just because it's really hard to see.
When we send it back to them, they'll type it in.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other questions on this policy? All right. Bring it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 6-0-0. 1 absent. Item E, Miller Intergenerational Walnut Trees. Who is going to handle this one? Okay, is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Moved by Trombley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Myers. Is there any discussion?
Yes, passing out some information to you. I know of Mr. Dan Lundgren, ran into him before with tree issues. I do cut trees that I admitted to heat my house. I simply wanted to get the information together on what this was, the Southern Canker's disease. Basically what this is, and you can go ahead and read it, but what it says is it has been, the disease has not been found in Michigan. The bug has been found in Indiana. That the bug and the disease, this Juglans nigra bug, it takes the two of them to take down a tree. And I speak personally because I'm one that I don't believe in killing something until it needs to be killed. And that's how I roll with trees. I eat with wood, but I only take plenty of trees that have already died of disease, and I take them for that purpose. The amount of board footage that's involved with these trees, one of them is about 12.5 feet diameter. I can't speak exactly what those numbers are, but at first estimate was speaking on the phone with a couple arborists, which it's hard to get them out here for a couple trees. The range is anywhere from being worth $8,000 to $30,000, depending on the size of the planks they get out of it. So I guess my only issue is with it. I I will be voting no on it, I'll be upfront, but it's because I don't see a reason. One of the things he says in here that I thought was kind of interesting, cutting down a walnut tree because it might get TCD would be like doing surgery on a patient that doesn't have cancer yet, but thinks he might get it. So this tree could last another 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years, or it might only last a few years. I just don't see the value of at $2,500 or $2,700, what it was to go through with it, just to kill a tree. That's all I have.
Mr. Brown?
Before anyone votes tonight, has everyone gone and looked at the trees that are in discussion? And again, I guess, in my opinion too, I would share your sentiment of the value. If the vote does pass tonight, I would leave it open for negotiation compared to a fixed price. So, I don't know if that's worth amending the motion.
You'd have
Yes. All right, then I'd make a motion to amend the previous motion that if it does pass, that the price would be negotiated, not for the said some amount.
So the amendment is that rather than having a fixed price, it is a price to be negotiated.
If it passes.
If it passes. John seconded. Mr. Trombley made the amendment. Mr. Conlon seconded it.
But on the flip side too, I didn't see one that was 12 and a half feet in diameter.
I did.
You put the tape around the largest part of it, the circumference of the tree, so, it actually looks to be about like this, but when you take the tape around it, it gets to that point. This gentleman did not come out and look at the tree. He simply was giving me information as to where it is. It's been quarantined, that beetle has been quarantined, and they don't believe that they have any more incidents in Indiana with that beetle. And again, it does take both of them. It's very similar. The one that I'm very familiar with is oak wilt. Oak wilt, you'll see the disease makes the tree wilt and the leaves start to fall off. That tree could last a very long time. It's the black ants. Once carpenter ants get a hold of it because it's in a weakened state, that tree will be hollowed out in about 3, 4, 5 years.
But again, this vote isn't in regards to the disease of the tree.
Right. The discussion here is, do we want to sell the trees? I understand. This was simply support for the reason as to why I don't want it.
Is there any further discussion?
I just have a question. Did I hear that there's 3 trees we're talking about?
Yes.
And all 3 of these trees are down in the ravines in the furthest westernmost part of the Miller property, correct?
And you got to put your big boots on to get down there.
Pardon?
For sure. You got to put the big boots on to get down there. That's for sure. It's late.
I also took a look at the trees, and they appeared to be very much alive. And just from the standpoint of having very much alive trees. And possibly this 1,000 cankers disease, which sounds horrible. But my understanding of it is it doesn't affect the heartwood of the tree. So if that was to attack, if that was to kill the tree would still be harvestable. That's my understanding. But it hasn't. There's no indication that it will, and the trees are very much alive at this point.
I guess it would be more convincing if, the offer was $80,000, I'll be honest. But
Again, the motion is to negotiate the price.
But I don't, we'd have to have a reason to need that money. I just don't feel that we need it at the moment. I mean, we can always use money, but we're doing fine. I don't see the reason to kill a tree right now. That's just my understanding. And I appreciate you letting me speak about it.
Well, and on that point though, too, I mean, I think that part of the consideration should be, what is the value of these trees in where they're located? I mean, if these were all large hardwood trees that were immediately adjacent to the building and it was providing an aesthetic value, shade, that would obviously be a different consideration. But these trees are not, they're not providing any additional shade that's already going to be there with that's a forested area. So they're not adding any shade from that standpoint. And And Ken, I appreciate your, they look healthy now. I personally had 10 fairly large oak trees that had to be taken down several years ago before anyone heard of oak wilt, because they ultimately became infected with oak wilt, and it cost a lot of money. And my concern is that if these trees remain and ultimately they do become diseased, we're not only likely not going to get anything paid to the district for the value of the hardwood, but we'll probably be paying a lot more just to have the trees removed because of their disease condition. So I'm looking at it from all those perspectives. I'm not looking to just get rid of trees just for the sake of getting rid of trees. There's obviously these other factors that should be taken into consideration. And I think Mr. Trombley's point is a good one, that if this motion is passed, we will look at what the compensation should be paid for the trees that are removed.
Is there any further discussion? All right, what is the motion that we're going to be voting on to start? What is the amended motion?
The amended motion,
Yes.
I thought it was to approve the sale of the walnut trees located on Miller intergenerational property to M&M Tree Service, with the amendment, if the motion passes, that it would not be a fixed price, it would be a negotiated price.
Very good.
Would that be like three bids or something like that, or how would we go about this? I don't even know what the process would be.
We think we put a value to them, and whether they want to take them down, pay us that value.
Okay.
Not to the increase.
All right, let's bring this to a vote then. All those in favor? And this is in favor of the amended motion, and the amended motion is to take down the trees and negotiate the price. Is that correct? So all those in favor of the amended motion to take down the trees and negotiate the price, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. That's Trombley, Myers, Reed. Okay, all those opposed, signify by saying aye. Aye. That's 3. 3 opposed. Motion fails.
Doesn't pay. Doesn't pass. Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Nice.
All right. For future action, Neola policy.
And we have 5 different policies, from student fundraising, P-cards, I think that's what Ms. Reed was asking about, crowdfunding, criminal justice, information security, and relations with special interest groups. So please familiarize yourselves with those over the next couple of weeks. We have, I believe, 3 before the next board meeting, and if you have specific questions, please reach out to me prior to that.
I've got a question. On page 82 of those policies, does that include trips of organizations through the school? Advisors for approved schoolers should not accept any form of compensation from vendors that might influence their selection.
Yeah, that would be school trip.
What's that?
That would be school trip.
Okay. So again, just to, let me see if I can get this in perspective. If a class decides to go to France and the travel agency is giving free trips based on the amount of students that are signed up.
It would have to be actual money.
Okay.
It would be a discount of a ticket. It would be
Okay,
actual.
but typically in the past, they've given free trips
Correct.
to
So what they do is
houses or whatever, or they have given them money.
they give them chaperones. So what would happen on a trip would be, there'd be a certain number. So it might be 10 participants, it might be 6 participants, it might be 100 participants. Depends on the actual trip itself.
Right.
And then what would happen is, once you get to that particular limit, since we have a ratio in the district for field trips as well, and supervising the field trips, that particular person goes as a chaperone. So there isn't a monetary gift to the person. That person is doing a job while they're there.
Well, that's in one instance. There has been monetary paid out after 6 students or 10 students, whatever the travel agency decides. and they will pay that to the organizer of that trip, either in cash or as someone else they'd like to bring, and it's not, and it's up to that person's discretion. Remember, Dr. Surrey, we discussed this a year or two ago.
Up to the advisor's discretion?
Yes. Well, now I believe it runs through you, doesn't it?
Well, the trip runs through me, but the model, the system that the vendor uses is so many student tickets, one adult chaperone ticket is part of the model. It's not something they give us, it's just something they have in there.
What I'm talking about specifically is after X amount of students have signed up, the organizer is entitled to either a free trip for one of their spouses, or they're compensated in money.
Let me know specifically the trip.
We discussed this a year and a half ago, and I'd just like to make sure this policy applies to that. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'll read it before you actually vote on it, and I'll give you a...
Okay.
Thank board members for bringing that up now and not the day we're voting.
Exactly, that's what
Question 2 related to page 82. The superintendent shall establish administrative guidelines. So do those exist? I mean, is that like a 10-page thing, or is that?
I'd have to look back. We did this, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, the last time that this came up. It was more about the trips, but there was one instance I remember Mr. Trombley asked me in relation to, and we looked into it, and then all the trips flowed through Dr. Surrey after that. If you'll notice again, page 5, there aren't any bolded items, so this is existing policy in terms of this. This hasn't changed. What's changed are the other pages where you see X marks or selections that we've done. But again, I'll do more research before the next meeting.
Well, and let me ask you, since you brought that point up, what happens if the policy is violated? Where are the consequences?
They would come to me. We would look at the
If you
scope
would
of
determine
their...
that? So the board has nothing in writing as to what those would be?
Correct. I handle this one.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the old policies for future action? All right. Moving on for information, Dr. Surrey, curriculum instruction.
Okay. Knowing that this might get possible, because we've had 2 other presentations, I need to make sure this is going to work. I asked Dr. Gistinger to switch slots with me, so she'll do it for information while we,
You do have slides.
it looks like it's up, it should be brighter though. You wanna go ahead and go, Dr. Gistinger, and then I'll make sure we're set. I gotta go grab my paperwork too.
It's the slide now, Jim. I think it's those.
So you have in your board packet the bills of December 22nd through January 12, 2017 for your review, and that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Dr. Giese? No? Oh, Mr. Conley has a question.
I guess we in our budget, and we talked about this a couple times, we talked about the LESA millage, and when did we get our first installment on that millage?
This is our first year.
This is the first year, so it didn't apply to us last year at all. When you take the LSA millage increase along with, what is our added cost funding or that we get for our vocational program? 150,000 this year, I think.
Well, it changes every year. Let me see if I can pick it up with our
It was 190 last part. I think it's in between 150 and 190, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I can't pick it off up here, but that sounds like it's in the ballpark.
Okay, so when we start to add up those numbers, and we started with a $2+ million fund equity, and we're only showing $4 million in fund equity in this budget cycle. So really, the increase in fund equity came from the LSA village.
Well, I mean, you can make a strong argument that the increase in our fund balance has come from a variety of revenue sources. It's just a matter of what you determine is the first money in the district minus the first money that's spent minus the last money in the district that's left over. I mean, it's all one big pot of money. So if it's coming down to a timing issue, you know, it would have to just be whatever's left that came in last.
So we're going to show in the budget here, we have 4.8 million at the end of the 17 cycle.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's just in a nutshell, if we didn't have the increase in the tax millage, we technically would be even.
Well, remember, we made some choices during the budgetary process that we probably would not have made if we hadn't received that additional funding.
Again, every year with our budget, we set a target as a group, and then that's what we try to get is that target. So revenue's up, revenue's down, governor gives us money, governor doesn't, governor takes it
That's
away.
all up. That's all up, right?
For now.
For now, it's all up, but even with it all being up, we're still only showing the increase from the increase in tax, not showing it from our bookkeeping system. So that means that we spent all the money that we were allocated, and we got some extra money that we weren't counting on that actually gave us our fund equity.
Well, there's some growth in the shared service program that we didn't have in our original budget. Our foundational allowance was accurately projected because we knew that number when the fiscal year started. And so, you know, again, there were some choices that we made that we probably would not have made if we wouldn't have received that funding from special ed millage.
What would some of those choices be?
Well, we purchased about $400,000 in musical instruments this year. We have not replaced our musical inventory in forever. One of the band teachers said in the 17 years that he's been in the district, he has never had a replacement of instruments, so that's a one-time thing that we won't be doing again.
Some teaching positions.
Yeah, we added some teaching positions. We purchased 2 additional buses this year, so we probably wouldn't have made that choice because our fleet is in not great shape, but it's not in horrible shape. So
We're pretty well caught up now. We should be able to get by with 2 to 3 buses from here.
So it just depends on, you know, the budgeting process and the decisions that are made when we create the original budget.
I imagine we also grew in size and kindergarten level and actually
Our in-district, our in-district is actually about where we projected. So we hit that almost on the head, which was good. We'll see how winter goes in terms of costs of gas and electric. For now, it's fine, but remember we had a very, very cold late winter and spring last year, so it could balance out. We bought some vans for the maintenance department that weren't in the original budget. We have some grants that we didn't always have in the budget. We made some decisions in some of the classrooms with equipment that we probably wouldn't have purchased in terms of the budget. And as I spoke at the last meeting, everything we've put in the budget that Mr. Connolly's talking about, we put it in as a one-time, easily backed out of situation. So we don't get into the situation where if the budget turns around to the negative, say the economy tanks or something happens, that we couldn't easily adjust. So that's the goal of our budget every year, is to be able to easily adjust without having people feel a tremendous amount of pain. I know 8 years ago, when I got here and we were headed $15 million in deficit, the $8 million we cut out of the gate was a lot of pain. And I don't really want to go through that again, so I don't know if anybody else does, but it wasn't a lot of fun for me. So everything we do, and that's why we bring it to you in a budget, we put in there in terms of one-time pieces that we might be able to look at. Another good example would be our academic enrichment coaches this year. There's 2 quality positions that are showing a lot of promise in the district. Our other 3 coaches show a lot of promise in the district. Those are all ones that are not required by the state of Michigan. They're not required by our teacher's contract, along with lots of other pieces. So again, there's easily $2 million of one-time money that could be pulled.
So in that, that's a good thing. And so I guess what I'd like to see then is on that, what exactly we spent the money on, which is good. Which is a good thing. I want to see what we approved and we agreed, and we all agreed that we're going forward with the district and having these extra benefits for students. I don't think anybody has not agreed to that. But looking at the gaming fund equity and the rate that it's gaining, again, it appears to be rational things that we're doing for being a better school district. We all agree to spend taxpayers' money on these items and not have them just be paid for, like this check that doesn't get signed, it's an electronic signature. I don't believe in that. I think we should acknowledge those programs. I think the electronic signature is part of this business because so many checks go through it. I understand that. But this isn't an electronic signature for $5 million or for $200,000 or $400,000 you said one time to upgrade equipment that will last us 20 years. I mean, I'm good with that. I have no problem with it.
So are we still talking about the bills of December
We are.
22nd?
We're talking about
from January
finance
12th, or are
question.
we talking about the amended budget from 2016?
Well, here's the situation. You guys
Seems
have
like
any questions?
we're talking about,
You don't want to mess with things, Dr. Sedley. This
seems like we're talking about.
He's got the floor.
I have the floor, Dr. Sedley.
Yes, and I'm the chair.
Yeah, I could care
And
less.
you recognize him,
So the idea though is I'd like to have a list of that and review it by the school board. And I appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks for your patience on that.
We also, when we build the budget each year, these are things we talk about when we build the budget, so.
Yeah, we do include a list in the projected budget of the items that we are planning to incorporate in the budget when we present them to you. There hasn't been much fluctuation other than increase in our shared service program that we didn't anticipate. We just rolled our enrollment forward from our previous fall count to this fall count, and then we have taken over Saginaw Bay County in our shared service program. We hadn't anticipated that, and we weren't really sure. We wanted to be conservative in our budgeting projections, so we thought that just rolling it forward would be a good projection, and so that's where a lot of the growth in the revenue and expenditures came from. But when it nets down to all of the changes that we have just talked about, we're very close to the projected budget number.
So what I'm hearing though, Mr. Connolly, you say is that as we build the budget, we can actually go area by area and talk about the different purchases and the different things we're thinking about. I don't care if it comes to us from shared service, I don't care if it comes to us from the governor, I don't care if it comes to us from the LESA. Our budget is our budget. We adjust each year. If we have to adjust backwards, we'll do it just as easily as if we have to adjust forwards.
I think it's a great time for the board to be aware of what it is. We can overspend, except
I know what
we
you
have the 400,000 to spend in paying equipment this year, which is good. We did it last time.
Yep.
So that 400,000, we decided to spend it. And in this part of the meeting, this is what is the time to discuss openly discussions with the people that run the finances of Brighton area schools. So held being by the board members. So anybody that would like to ask those questions, you never fear asking. Anybody can ask them.
Thanks, Mr. Conley. And I would appreciate the same dignity when I'm talking about meal policies.
Well, except that you can call it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the next meeting as well.
So I believe we're done with this. Let's move on to curriculum instruction. Dr. Stern.
All right, thank you. This evening, well, as you know, perhaps, that the state of Michigan has released the top to bottom list for this year. They released it actually in November. It was all embargoed until very recently, Friday, they released reward schools and top to bottom lists. And so I wanted to come tonight and present some of the data, some really good news for the board. I don't have all the information because like I said that, the reward school data, the buildings need to look into the whys behind everything. But just, today is a really good day to be in Brighton. And I'm kind of reminded and listening about things we've chosen to spend money on. When it comes to curriculum, I think we've been really thoughtful and really intentional about spending money on things that are going to do good things for kids, and that's always the way it is. And when I go to Dr. Gray, or an administrator goes to Dr. Gray and says, hey, can we add an administrator to Brighton High School? Because we've been doing this for 2 years with just 2 people, right? And he doesn't just say yes just to fill a slot, even though he'd love to make everybody happy. He doesn't just say, what are you going to do? What is that position going to look like? And I'm just it's a good example. 2 years ago when the high school team brought to Dr. Gray, to us actually, the idea of having Mr. Jeff Bean become a high school not grade level teacher or a principal, but a principal for secondary instruction. And that's his only role, to do evaluations and to focus on instructional quality of that building. And we thought it was a good idea. Dr. Gray said, yeah, let's go ahead with that. And I think tonight, that might be one of the root causes for some good news that I want to share with you. because as the top to bottom list came out, we saw, just like we always do, a lot of Brighton schools are in the top 10 percentile, meaning if a school's at the 92nd percentile, it performs higher, it's ranked higher than 92% of the schools in the state of Michigan. And I looked it up this afternoon, there's 2,700 schools in the state of Michigan. So that's a really good thing. We've had reward schools in our district before, in our elementaries. 3 of them have been reward schools in the past. Last year, we took the M-STEP test online for our first time, and we saw a bit of a dip in our ELA scores, some translation in that process, the writing. So 2 of our elementaries, even though they're still in the 90th percentile, they went from being in the 98th or 97th to the 94th or the 93rd. They're not necessarily reward schools anymore, but Horning Elementary is still a reward school at the 98th percentile. And I'm going to go into that with you in just a moment. But I really want to share with you tonight, going back to the high school, the excellent news that Brighton High School has been chosen by the Michigan Department of Education as a reward school for the 2015-2016 school year. And that is an amazing accomplishment, because as hard as it is for an elementary school to become a reward school, and believe me, it's hard for any school to do that, to be a high school is almost, well, it's minimal, it happens minimally. Very few high schools ever reach this status. And so I just want to share some data with you. This PowerPoint will be, I'll show you at the end if I remember, on the data wall that we have on our district website. So you can go to see this, shoot, I flipped it around. Well, does anybody see up there how to unflip that? Margaret, where are you? What's that thing in the middle say? Doesn't it say, I can't see it.
Your presentation will
Oh, wait.
screen.
Is Margaret still here?
Yes.
Come on up, Margaret. I'm in presentation mode up there, but how do I switch this back?
Given the show, start over.
Yeah, just end it. Hopefully. Just a little to the top. Little slideshow. Yep. You can see that's really key. To the right. That one? Yep. And it's really deep. We need to fix that. Which is not tonight. No? Oh. Did it start out okay? Hold on, flip to there. There. And then maybe that one.
We can see the big slides.
I think you could just go down the left side.
Are you sure? Okay. I appreciate that. From this.
Yeah.
Very good, okay.
If I could read her screen, I could fix it, but her screen is like this big.
Okay, so anyways, so to be a reward school, 219 Michigan schools met the criteria this year to be a reward school. That number is actually down because remember how I mentioned all M-STEP scores across the state were depressed after, which is kind of weird because this last year was our first year doing online. Everybody else went online about a year before that, and they also saw a dip in their M-STEP scores. So the reward schools also are less this year. In order to be selected as a reward school, you have to meet one of these 3 criteria that you see bullet point. One is you have to be in the top 5% of schools on the top to bottom list. And Brighton High School, you're going to see in a moment, we're at the 93rd percentile. That's not the top 5%. So let's go to the second one, the top 5% of schools making the greatest gains in achievement or improvement. And according to the state of Michigan, that is why we were selected as a reward school at the high school. And then the last one is beating the odds, outperforming the school's predicted ranking and or of similar schools. We always perform very well across our peer group. So we'll continue on. This slide's from the Department of Education, and it explains basically what I just said, that we are a reward school because we're progressing rapidly and improving rapidly. And I have a lot of hunches about why that is, and some of it is about our leadership, and some of it is about the systems they're putting in place that really focus on instruction. Then this is from the Beating the Odds comparison group, and you can find this data on the Michigan Department of Education. If you go to Beating the Odds, it's very, very interesting. You can look up any school and see what their peer group is, because all of our schools have different peer groups. So what's interesting about this slide is, as you can see, the average, it compares state foundation allowance and ours at 7126. We're about $500 below per pupil the average across our peer group. Okay, and I'll show you the peer group in a moment. And then you can also see how many students we have enrolled, much higher than other schools in the average group. And it's really hard for a large high school to do this. I don't know if you remember 5, 6 years ago, all the talk was about small schools. And we were like, gosh, we're stuck with a big school. But the small schools were getting it done. And this chart just talks about how they predicted that Brighton High School would perform at the 83rd percentile, just given our demographics, our funding, our class sizes, our enrollment numbers. We shouldn't be performing in the 90s like that. And then 93 is our actual. And let's see here, more here. Just here. Okay. And then this last one, and I have I printed off a slide for you to see, but this is our peer group. You know how sometimes I'll show you, I'll say, well, I went on to the Department of Education and I pulled school districts that we compare ourselves to. For whatever reason, for me, it's just that's a great school district. Well, they use a different matrix for this, and then they rank order within that group. And as you can see, Brighton High School ranks number 6. You'll also notice all the way to the right, there's only one other reward school up there this year, and that happens to be Dexter High School. When you get a chance to see this, you know, Novi High School is on the list. I mean, there's Northville High School. There's a lot of schools that we look at and say, you know, we model after. Now,
could you run the cursor over Brighton High School?
It's not on here.
Oh, it's not on.
It's not. That's just the comparison list. That's
Okay.
why I have the top one is where our ranking is. And like I said, I printed the PowerPoint. There's just 5 slides for you, and then you'll have that, and you can look at those lists, because I think that was interesting. So what does it mean to be a reward school? It's a great honor. You're among a very select class. Schools move in and out of that reward status. Saline High School, for example, is not a reward school this year, but they were last year. So it doesn't mean they become a bad school. It's just that they didn't hit that criteria. So for us to be in that group now means that our goal is to stay in it, or to move out one year, go back in the next year, just like a lot of these school districts that we watch. But I will also tell you, once you make that list, the Department of Education starts to look at you. And what are you doing that put you on that list? What are the practices that are in place? You know, what are the systems that you've developed? And so there will be some opportunities, I believe, for our leadership, and even our data coaches at Brighton High School, our school improvement people, leadership, to perhaps present some of the work they've been doing the last 3 years, because they've been doing tons of work. I think Mr. Vecchione, Mr. Thompson could even comment, both of them could comment on all the work that the staff's been doing on common assessments, aligning the curriculum. Now they're working on backward design. So it's just an amazing process they're doing. And like I said, once you make that list, people start to look at you and say, what are you doing, so we can learn from you. So before we pass out the rest of that list, I just also want to share with you as well, Corning is a reward school too, again. And they are very, very impressive. Let me share with you. They're in the 98th percentile. They're ranked number 1 in their peer group, which is, again, 30 schools that are like schools. They have 4 qualifications for being, 4 qualifications for being a reward school. So they were high performing. That means they were in the top 95 percentile, progressing rapidly, beating the odds, and they're statistically higher than their study or their comparison group. So they're doing, and I know they're doing some amazingly intentional things over there with technology. They've got like a family model for supporting their struggling students. I don't know, Jack's not hearing. Okay, so, and I'm sure that we'll have them come and present that a little bit too. And again, some similarities here as far as funding or school size. 550 students in an elementary is huge. So, you know, but they're getting it done, and I mean, all of our elementaries are large compared to like former districts that I worked at. They were usually, you know, 275, built to be only hold 275, not 450 or higher kids. Look at this. Corning was projected to be, or predicted to be, at the 79th percentile for all the various factors they put in. So they're killing it. And then I do have this as well. For the Horning group, this is the only handout I have for you. But notice there's a lot more reward schools, and those are mostly elementary schools, all elementary. So anyways, congratulations to the board for your support and your hard work in making Brighton High School and continuing to support the education development of all of our buildings. And I think that's all I have for this evening. We'll be talking more about it, especially, like I said, school improvement teams start to dig into that data. It's not all great news. We always have things that, you know, we look at this and then tomorrow we'll start getting to work like, oh, okay, we got to work on this and that and the other thing. And those things will be bringing to your attention over the next few weeks and months too.
And those are the things we want to review to stay in this position, right? Is that type of improvement what you do?
Well, some of it, and then some of our data, we need to look at why did that number dip. Like I said, the MSTEP scores, I can say it's because we did an online test. Well, that's just an idea. I need to explore that. Might be more to it. So, any questions? That's all I have for this evening then. Marcus, if you would pass, just distribute the, just pass it down, both of those packets.
Mr. Trauma has a question.
Oh, one more thing.
One more thing.
Henry, could you just remind me one more time, when we stay on this topic?
We have a health advisory committee that's district-wide, and we are in need of a board member. We require to have a board member on that committee, and Ms. Minor was the board member, and she is no longer on the board.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for one volunteer from the board. We have a meeting this Thursday at 7 o'clock in this room, and discuss the health curriculum of this district.
They can just email you, correct?
Yep, shoot me an email, let me know that you'd like to be part of it, great.
Sorry, Mr. Trombley.
So, going back to the projected score of the high school, does that mean next year, or typically what happens since they surpassed it, does that mean next year they'll go to 93, or will it still inch up from 83, or what will happen next year since they surpassed the projected score?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly what they'll put in for the projection. I do think it'll bump up. It actually, since 2013-14, which was the last, remember last year they didn't do this, because the first year of stuff. So 13-14, last time they did this, I believe the numbers, they projected Brighton High School to be 81, and we were, no, this is 2 years ago, and well, there's a 5-point. This is a 10-point spread, but it's so that it changes every year. But I think it will go up a little bit.
So theoretically, if they do the same thing they did this year, next year they would be in the same category again.
Correct, because they use the same indicators.
Right.
So they're looking at economically disadvantaged, they're looking at the economics of the district, they're looking at all the kids, they're looking at several indicators, and those indicators don't change. So I would predict, unless our population changed dramatically, that we'd still hover around that 83 as a projected. And then we'd look and hopefully, I'd like to see us get to 95%, not to rain on anybody's parade, because I think this is unbelievable, but you accomplish something, I think you reassess your goals. And we talked about this at the high school today, about what's our next step. You know, we want to be number one.
To answer your question, if you consider Horning is still this year at 79. They've been at 98 percentile for 3 years.
Yeah, they've been a
reward school. Yeah. So,
right.
but they're just saying, given your population and your funding and your all the pieces, you should be about 79.
Well, and that's a point that you spent a little time on, but think about it this way. At the high school alone, our peer districts get, on average, $500 more per kid. If you look at 6,000 kids in the district, that'd mean an additional $3 million worth of revenue just for that particular indicator. You could do an awful lot with an additional $3 million for instruction.
But what's interesting is, even though we don't make that, we've been much more strategic than a lot of districts have been to what you spend your curriculum money on. And so, I mean, I don't know of other districts that have instructional coaches or enrichment coaches, and they certainly don't have a principal in their high school whose only job is evaluation and instructional practice. So that's pretty amazing, I think, choice that we made as a district.
How is the number derived? I mean, where does the number come from? What's the composite that goes into determining the 79 or the 98?
Well, so the whole thing is they take a scale score of all the, and this is English, English, math, science, and social studies. So they take proficiency, how many kids are proficient, and they rank order that, and they do a standard deviation around that so that they can see are they above or below the state average. So they take every student in 10th grade or 11th grade and they list them out. And then they just rank them. So the 98, the 79 has nothing to do with the percent of students who are proficient. It has to do with, they take that proficiency, and so there's a proficiency one, and then there's a growth one.
Okay.
So how much movement did they make from one test to the next? And so that's why we didn't have it last year, because last year it was the first year of M-STEP, second year of M-STEP, we could finally have a comparison. So now we're back to this, and that's why the state released it. What the state didn't release this year is focus schools and priority schools. So they're just focusing kind of on the good news as we have get one more year of gathering that data.
Thank you so much. Yes. Mr. Myers.
Mr. Ed, just one question. So you outlined the 3 criteria that only one of which had to be met to qualify for the reward, to qualify as a reward school. And the high school qualified under the progressing rapidly.
Yes.
And I understand the high performing is an objective determination, and beating the odds is beating the projected rank. Is there an objective criteria for the progressing rapidly, or how's that determined?
Well, that's the part that we have to dig into, because that's definitely into the scorecard. And if you've had a chance to look at the scorecard, it's very complicated. So we'll be bringing all the scorecards to the board probably within the month.
Okay.
And then we can give you more information on that.
Thank you, Dr. Surrey, for sharing such wonderful news.
It really is. The board is to be congratulated. Brighton High School, we were able to go visit with them as a staff today to congratulate them for all of their hard work. You know, leadership is only as good as a classroom teacher, and we have excellent classroom teachers over there.
Thank you so much. Always good to celebrate the wins, so thanks for bringing that into us. All right, human resources.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing. Board reports. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The last Houston County Community Alliance meeting, there was a suggestion that the grade schools were hard to get to when it comes to some programs that are doing in other grade schools, regarding drug prevention for things coming in middle school and high school. And I just suggested back to the people in charge of the or our superintendent, see if we couldn't work through that. If they felt there was a little apprehension for the principals of the grade schools, and that willing to really get a look at this. We're interested in anything we can make it better for the kids, the students, and that was my recommendation. So we contacted Dr. Gray, and I think that's it for now.
Anything else? I had a couple of questions, and this is just related. I don't know what's going on Tuesday night, February 21st, and Thursday night, February 23rd. So what, we're supposed to have retreat, we're supposed to have superintendent training.
So originally we had the 21st scheduled 6 to 9 p.m. for retreat, 23rd scheduled 6 to 9 p.m. for evaluation training. Mr. Birchfield could not make it to the 21st. He asked that I push the retreat date to the 23rd, 6 to 9 p.m. and look for a later date in March for the evaluation training. So the evaluation, or the retreat date is still the 23rd, 6 to 9 p.m. You can cancel the 21st, and we'll look for another date in March. I have some of those dates that I can send you in an email that I received from Dr. Green today, and then we'll be talking location and other specifics about the retreat.
And we're assuming, is everybody available on the 23rd?
I did hear from Mr. Myers today that he's not available on the 23rd.
Okay.
He had a really interesting point. I don't know if it would work. because it's not the evaluation training, it's actually the retreat.
Oh, the 23rd was the retreat date?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was the
It was originally, but it got switched.
okay.
Is there, it relates to this, it seems to be pretty important that all of us are there for the retreat. So
I
is
think
it worth scheduling so that around everybody's schedule, just to make sure that we can all be there for the retreat? And, you know, possibly rescheduling that to a time that all 7 board members can be there.
For me, it's critical, because it's nice to know how all 7 of us.
Okay.
If that's unattainable for Mr. Myers, then I'll go back to the drawing board.
And is it 23rd causes you difficulty?
Yes.
You can't be there on the 23rd. Then why don't we reschedule?
I will.
We'll come up with something that.
I'll work with Dr. Green and Mr. Birchfield.
Okay. And then the superintendent evaluation. Do we all need to take that at the same time, or is that something that we could just do?
You're not actually required to take it.
Okay.
But we were trying to schedule it for all 7. I don't know, there are other places where you can take it. MASB would have a listing of those, but.
How long are each?
That's 3 hours. It's actually 6 hours worth of training. We're trying to get 3 hours for the first one.
Could we do a day of both? I don't know how.
It's hard. They're 2 totally different things. The retreat is more of a team building, direction building, goal setting type session. The evaluation training is pretty much scripted language from the state of Michigan and MASB on what are the requirements. So it would be awkward because you get 2 different goal sets in those meetings. But again, let me talk to Dr. Green tomorrow. He does these all over the state. And then I'll get with Mr. Birchfield and we'll derive a plan.
And do we feel strongly, I've worked with Mr. Green before, he does a wonderful job. If it's his schedule versus the sum of our schedule.
There's other people at MASB.
Okay. So that might be something to find one.
They're pretty stock pieces.
Yeah. So the primary goal is to find some time that all 7 of us can be there. And then the secondary goal is to find something MASB can facilitate.
That's right.
Okay.
You're talking for the retreat, though, correct?
For the retreat.
Yes.
And again, could you just clarify, the superintendent training is not mandatory by the state? That's correct. Thank you.
Any other board reports? All right, bond report. Anything?
We can actually scratch that off the list.
Item E is gone from the second call of the public. Please.
How this goes, I'm Mike McBride. I'm more interested in the walnut trees. Since there's only 6 of you, does it go for a revote since there's somebody missing?
It fails, no.
So how do I appeal it?
Unless someone wants to put it on the agenda again.
We have to go through a process of being placed on the agenda.
And the only thing I also want to say is to, what was your name?
Mr. Stahl.
Mr. Stahl. You kept using the word kill, like I'm actually killing something. I'm actually making something live forever. If for generations, we should be thankful that people have been harvesting timber. Like, if I was to go in there and kill, I would try to buy every walnut there was. I'm actually just saving the little ones for like my son and his kids. That disease, like I was talking about, I didn't say that's why I want them. When something becomes so big, there's a time for harvest. So if you have like a farmer, obviously his harvest is quicker. He goes plants his corn, he has to harvest it. So there's a time and a place for everything. That's why I only picked 3. I could have picked 8, 9, 10. So I'd be thankful that our generations back and build houses on dead trees. Because, you know, we take it for granted every day. And if you're still concerned, I would try using something other than toilet paper. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Anyone else for call to the public?
This is Sue Ellen Aikens, 125 North 4th in Brighton. I'm curious how the tree issue got on the agenda in the first place. Does the...
It was recommended by our Director of Operations.
Okay, so it didn't come through a board member.
That's correct.
Is that the person that replaced
Mr. Breen.
okay. And he was hired recently then.
Over the summer, at the end of last school year. Yeah. He placed it on to see what the discussion would be in relation to that.
Okay. I just,
There was no ill will from him towards trees.
no, certainly not. I'm just uncomfortable with, I'm uncomfortable with our school board horse trading with local businesses to help them make profits. That's not our role. And I would suggest that we consider a policy that prohibits us from wheeling and dealing with our friends and people that we know through other avenues to help them make profits off what belongs to the taxpayer. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for call to the public? Our next meeting is February 13th, and this meeting is adjourned.